Hey, Kevin, what can we do for you this morning?
Hey, thanks for taking my call, you guys. I'd like to bring up the subject on the canonization process of the Bible and why I believe it's left up to us to figure out parables and figure out the meaning behind them.
Sure. Can I ask you a question?
First of all, yes.
Do you think parables and things like that are a good way to tell somebody a message or like a dire message? Like you would think that that's a good message? I'm just curious on where your take is.
Well, no, because a dire message would imply that it's necessary for it to be known immediately.
So if I wrote you a poem to tell you your house was on fire, probably not the best way to do it, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's kind of the analogy I'm going to make before you start here is that like if it's up to us to figure out parables, like I can't think of a worse way to tell somebody that their house is going to be on fire here pretty soon. It's going to get really hot, and I'll write them a poem about it.
Let me do an interpretive dance about it.
Yeah, or an interpretive dance, right? Like, wouldn't it be better to just outright say what you mean?
Yeah, it could, but when we're talking about the Bible here, I'm coming off of the assumption that not only was it applied to the people that it was being said to during that time, but at a time that's far into the future as well.
Sure. How do you even know that what the parables at which we will distinguish are the right ones? How do we know that those are the actual words for us to even decipher in the first place? So I back up a little bit before we go to the route of deciphering the poem that tells us to get out of the burning house. What makes us think that the poem we have was even written by the person that's espoused from? Like, what's your evidence for us to even care in the first place?
Well, first of all, I really think it's necessary to tell you that the early church fathers by no means were correct in compiling this information for us.
You're saying that they weren't correct?
I mean, I think we can agree on that.
Yeah, correct at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust people hundreds of years removed from the actual events. So what gives you confidence to say that is what was accurately supposed to be depicted in the first place before we even get to deciphering the meaning?
Well, to get directly to the point, the conclusions that I draw is basically that the Bible is a trilogy.
Yeah, but
in such a way,
Lord of the Rings is a trilogy, right? So I want to ask you again. I'm not trying that to be mean. I'm just saying like that won't add credit to me. It has no has no epistemic weight for me. What actually does is how you know, right? How do you know that what is being said is there? Like, it seems weird to me, right? Because like you're thousands of years removed, right? And let's say the most trusted person that you know comes up to you and says, I saw the risen Tupac or the risen Elvis, right? You're probably not going to believe, like, who's the most trusted person that you know? Like your wife or your
family?
Family? Okay. If they told you that, would you believe that claim?
Yeah. Well,
you would.
I mean,
you'd believe it off the testimony.
It's
well, here, just walk through me with real quick. I want to do something. But would you believe it? Is it yes or no?
If family told me,
just off of here, just off the testimony only.
Off of testimony only, no.
Okay. So why do you trust anything that Paul or someone would say in which you're 2,000 years removed from the events, but you wouldn't apply the same standard to people that you do know, that you could actually make some testament to their credibility or something like that, as opposed to accepting that the parables were written from people you don't even know that you're 2,000 years removed from? So that's a huge gap that I feel like needs to be
I know that Paul wrote most. I know that Paul wrote most, but not all of the New Testament. But
sure, but I'm sorry to keep interrupting you. I know it's frustrating for me to keep interrupting you, but I feel like you're not answering the question. like why, if you are 2,000 years removed, why do you trust that? There's clearly there has to be some method at which you've employed to decipher that is the case. So what is that?
Well, because I feel like I have a clear understanding of it now, because in this age that we're living in, we can find out that there was so much more that should have been put in to bring it to a better light. You know what I mean? Like, for example,
so you feel like the Bible that you've constructed, or that we can now construct through different historical documents, etc., is perhaps better than the ones that the Gideons are handing out, but still, why? Like, what the Bible that you've constructed, the canon that you accept, that's based on this, that, and the other thing. Okay, sure, it's better, but how is it good?
Well, like something that Eric Murphy had said before really stuck with me, and the question he brought up was like, where did the names of the authors of the New Testament even come from? Which was actually Roman Catholic assignments to the names. But to get to the point, those names they were just arbitrary, and what I mean by that is that even though they were given Roman Catholic assignment names like Peter and so on and so forth, what's important is the meaning behind the name. You know what I mean?
No, what's important is whether or not we have any reason to think it's true. That's what matters. I don't care anything other than beyond a reason for me to think that it's true. And like, I don't know if you're familiar with what's called docile reproduction or editorial fatigue. Are you familiar with those concepts?
No, I'm not.
So it's like a method that's used to kind of decipher Markan priority, which is to say, like, Mark was first. We have examples like in Mark 6 and then Matthew 14. We have the same story of John the Baptist being beheaded, right? And so Herod Antipas is referred to as a king in that, which is wrong historically. Like, he was a tetrarch, he was a ruler, which the difference is that he's a ruler of a fourth of a province. And so what you get is in Matthew them changing this to tetrarch, right? So now you have him deliberately changing it to fit antiquity, and then having it in 14:9, he reverts back to Mark's wording. This is where the editorial fatigue comes in. He's using the source, right? We can see this plain as day in several examples, to where he goes back to in 14:9, he says the king was deeply grieved. He has no reason to say the king was deeply grieved. He would have kept with the same language as a tetrarch. And the reason I bring this up is just to say we can look at
borrowing from another text. Then,
yeah. Well, what my saying is that we can look at these and decipher the priority of it. We can decipher the double traditions, things like that. We can, from my perspective, if you're into Q source and those things, we can pretty much show that there's no reason to have a hypothetical source that we don't even know exists, when we can take like the double tradition elsewhere. But point being is that we have all these methods at which to decipher. Well, the reason I'm saying is that if they're anonymous, then we have examples of the text being changed, and then you're 2,000 years removed, and then you have the church fathers that you would, I think you even admit, are hundreds of years removed. It doesn't seem like you have really any good reason to attest to it. It seems that there's only reasons that go against the claim of validity. Like, where would you push back on?
Well, let me bring this up to you, because parts of the New Testament say Second Peter. If you read that over quickly, it basically endorses the book of Jude. But the book of Jude directly uses apocryphal text. It actually quotes it. And the reason why I bring that up, that's basically to denote that the apocryphal text preceded the author of the New Testament. And so that it was relevant, and that's what they went by during those days. And that the church fathers were incorrect by dating them to approximately 3rd or 4th century, I think.
Okay, and so it sounds like through all that, I don't have any reason to think that, like I said at the beginning, that this was written by who you think, or whether it was true, or what I'm even supposed to decipher the parable. So
It feels like you're really discrediting your own book here, which I'm fine with, but I'm ultimately trying to get to the so why of it. Like we've hit you with a couple of questions here. I hope you've gotten a chance to kind of get your piece out, but I'd love to kind of check in on why any of this stuff matters.
The why was the reason why I brought up the names of the New Testament authors and why they're arbitrary is because the meaning is what's important behind all of it, not the names.
Okay, but what is the meaning of it, and why is that meaning important? The stories within the Bible, why should I read the Bible or whatever version of the Bible and care?
Well, yes, if it wasn't something that works consistently, then it wouldn't be worth bringing up. Like, for example,
is there any version of the Bible, past or present or future, that contains information that is useful or vital to my life? And can you point at that information? You can tell me how to interpret it. You can tell me which version to read. You can tell me what to throw out. I'll let you just completely edit everything and completely curate this experience for me. I still need you to find something that has value for me.
Well, I mean, I can give you homework, but I don't know if you.
I think ultimately they're just better books, books that have been better edited, better written, and that make a hell of a lot more sense and that can contribute better to our moral growth. But JMike.
Well, no, I'm sorry. And let's skip all the, with that, like why? Because I feel like this is easier. Why would you think it's true? What reason do you have? Does it generate novel predictions? Does it explain the world around us? Is it the best model that explains the world around us? Because as far as I can tell, it does a horrible job at that. So why should I believe it? Why do you believe it? Before we can even get to what you're deciphering the parables are or whatever it is, like what epistemic reason do you even have? Like, what justifies it?
I apologize. It's going to be just a tiny bit of mental gymnastics, but within the Bible, Peter represents the church, and just like Jesus represents the Word, the interactions between Peter and Jesus is also the interactions between the church and
where's
the Word.
Where's the source that you're getting that from, though? Right? Aren't you just being viciously circular to appeal to the thing at which you're trying to prove?
No, it's not something that I'm pulling out of thin air. This is just using.
Wait, so you would agree though that it's independently verifiable, right? Because you're mentioning these things, and the context that we're using is the book, right? But then you go to contents within the book, what Peter wrote or what Jesus said. But like if I give this example a lot, but if I want to explain to you
the Apocrypha is unverifiable.
If I give you something like a biology book and I say evolution's true, and you go, how do you know it's true? I go, oh, I read it right here in a biology book. That's not a good answer. What's a good answer is, oh, I can actually go into nature and we actually have a thing called the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. We can see if evolution's occurring and at what rates, and we can detect whether there's a frequency of allele distribution in a population, right? Like we can do things independent. I can look at vestigial structures of organisms, or like there's independent things of what does the justifying. I don't need the book. I don't need the claim. The claim is not evidence. It's just the claim. So when you revert back to it, you just go back to the same thing. Like, what is your independent evidence? Because if it's true, then it shouldn't. First off, we should have no problem investigating it. And two, it should be abundantly clear. So what is that independent evidence you're using?
Well, I kind of think it's a little bit of a language problem when it comes to deciphering the Bible. It's just like what you guys were saying.
So then how do you know it's true?
I thought about it. I thought about it a little bit, and if we were to believe that there's some type of a higher knowledge out there who is trying to show us the right way of living, so on and so forth.
But I don't believe that though.
That being was supposed to. Well, just from the Christian perspective, I'm talking about.
Sure, but that's only if we beg the question from
yeah,
the Christian perspective.
True.
That's what JMike has been asking you for the last 10 minutes here. Is like, why should we start from that premise? Why should we believe that?
Well, if we're speculating on whether it's true or not, then
it should be independently true and verifiable, right? Can you name me something that we know to be true that isn't independently verifiable and goes through, like, why is it that when I talk about allele frequencies or talk about anything, why do I have to go through the rigorous testing of science? Why do we have to do that? Why do you get to sidestep the process? It's so frustrating to me. And I'm not doing this towards you, but it's when I ask you for your justification for the belief at which you hold, you're not doing anything to justify it. You beg the question. And if I had done that to you, if I had gone to you and pulled out a biology book and let's say something was wrong about evolution, right? And I just chalked it up and I said, oh, it was a parable or a metaphor. It's not actually what it meant. Doesn't that seem like a cop-out that I could use anytime I want to in the back pocket? And then try to relate that to the Bible and see if that's not what we're doing. So, like, what is the independent evidence?
Well, I mean, I agree with what you guys are saying and everything, but I tend to think that kind of works with anything in life, that it's left up to the individual to figure it out.
No, it's up to the independent. It's up to the verification.
Yeah.
We have a peer review process. So this is what weeds these types of things out, where we can post hoc rationalize anything. There's a term in the philosophy of science called the problem of underdetermination. What that means is that you can essentially assess with any set of data, you could just come up with a hypothesis. Like, you could just do it for anything. You could explain whatever you want a different way. Nobody cares about the post-dictions, what you do. People care about the novel predictions. So when you say it's up to this, no, it's not. We make the novel predictions. They produce some result. We try to peer review and falsify it, which goes back to the whole rigorous process I'm talking about. And so we'll see if there's some bias or there's some variable that was, put in there by operator error, right? We do this enough times where that's the case. We do this with the Bible, and we can't even verify it, let alone get to a process of peer review. And then half the claims are unfalsifiable, and it just puts itself in a pseudoscience camp. And so then I'm asking what the justification is. It seems like the only thing we can do is just basically go screw the reliable epistemological framework that science or something else uses, and let's insert something that doesn't actually provide any results. And that's not something I can get on board with. And it sounds like to me, like, I feel like you recognize that. I feel like I can feel it off of you. You recognize it's not a good way to determine truth, but I don't want to speak for you.
Well, to tell you guys in the first place that there was information missing, that is the truth itself. In this day and age that we're living in, and our ability to find out what that information is gives us the ability to give it more integrity that had existed in the past.
I mean, if you're telling us that we can improve upon the Bible, like, I don't entirely disagree, but you still have to give me something to work with. You have to give me some reason to believe that book is worth investigating. Now, I'm all for archaeology and the sort of the forensics of, like, trying to understand where the Bible came from and who wrote it and all of these sorts of things. But just saying that the Bible is imperfect in its current form doesn't give me any reason to believe that there is a right or true or correct or useful, let alone perfect version that has ever or ever will exist. So I appreciate you calling and kind of pointing out some of these flaws, but I don't know that they lead to the conclusions that you're suggesting that they do. And I don't know, I might encourage you to watch back this clip a little bit and see some of the questions that we answered that you didn't really feel prepared to answer. And I get that. Like, it's tough to be on a show like this. It's tough to, the anxiety and the nerves of it all. But maybe sit with some of those questions and see what kind of answers you have that satisfy yourself. And really ask yourself if this is a book that is worthy of your pursuit.
Okay. All right. It was a pleasant call. Thanks for taking my call, Shane.
Yeah, thanks for calling. And if I got heated, I'm sorry. Nothing towards you. It's just, I'm passionate about this, defending the standard at which we come to knowledge, and the ones that are offered up as alternatives. Just to me, it's on par with listening to the conspiracy theorist tell me some story that he believes in. There's nothing that does the justification. That's nothing as insult to you. It's just that's just the belief, and we should all look at our beliefs and not take them personally and look at them to see if there's validity.
Oh, I understand completely. I even though I am a theist, I do enjoy the challenge that you guys bring to the conversation and everything. And yes, my nerves do get to me every once in a while, but there's no personal offense or anything. So. Oh
no, yeah, you're good. And hey, I really appreciate your attitude, and it sounds like you care. Doesn't matter if people disagree. I could feel that you care to look into this, and so I just urge you to keep doing that. And if it's true, then hey, there's nothing to fear from the investigation of it, right? So
fair to say.
Yeah.
All right. Well, take care,
you guys.
You too. Have a great weekend.
All right. Thanks. You too.
It is time to give a shout out to the patrons. Mm-hmm. I have patrons. Sorry. And I'm excited about this because there's a name on there that I love saying, and I got to say it last week, and I get to say it this week, so I'm happy about it. But our top 5 patrons are Eric Tweet, CJ Dennis, Dingleberry Jackson. Everybody,
there it is.
Balam's Donkey. That's a contender as well. Paul Leah, honorary mention, the great North American Dingalo. So actually it's top 6. So thank you to all the patrons. And again, if you want to help support us on Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/talkheathen to me.
Yeah, and I want to take a quick moment as the host of Secular Sexuality, Thursdays at 7, to just say that I really appreciate the audiences of this show and some of the other shows, because when you join and become a patron and help the ACA keep its doors open and keep the lights on and make sure that we have all of these like fancy lights and microphones and everything else, that bleeds over into making Secular Sexuality go. We're a show with a much smaller audience, but a really important message. And so when folks contribute during a show like this, you're also helping teach sex ed. You're also helping folks who are coming out of religion learn about their bodies, learn about how to embrace their sexuality or how to heal from some of that trauma. So it's something very appreciated.
Yes.